The ANC's steering committee has resolved that the 19 quarantined votes emanating from the 5 branches in Ekurhuleni should be disqualified and remain closed. This emerged at the Gauteng provincial conference. Party members held an emergency steering committee meeting to discuss the issues of the quarantined votes. This comes after some delegates demanded that the votes be opened in a closed session. The province is expected to conclude the conference at the Birchwood Hotel in Benoni in the east of Johannesburg. Let's get more then. And of course, we're crossing to Sabc News reporter Natasha Phiri, who's indeed been covering the story for us there in Benoni. A very good afternoon to you, Natasha. The story of the 19 quarantined votes again rearing its ugly head. Will we see the end of it? I mean, what's happening now?
Well, indeed, Flo, the issue of the quarantine votes, as you correctly said, reared its ugly head, but now it is a thing of the past for this conference. Remember, like you read out there in your introduction, the steering committee then resolved to disqualify those votes and to actually seal them, not open those quarantine votes, so they have no bearing whatsoever on the provincial conference. But in terms of the Ekurhuleni region, the newly elected leadership, PEC, I beg your pardon, will be tasked with dealing with that matter. And just talking about the PEC, if I'll just step out of the frame, and my colleague Herbert Mamela will show you that members of the Ekurhuleni region are currently voting for those 30 PEC members, those additionals, like you can see there, the provincial secretary of the ANC, Mr. TK Ngiza, also walking out of that conference venue flow. So indeed, the quarantine votes are a thing of the past. Delegates are actually now voting for their PEC members. We do understand that they will be getting a feedback or a report back from those commissions. They will be adopting those resolutions, the announcement of those PEC members, the declaration, and of course the closing of this conference. We do understand that the Treasurer General, Mr. Paul Mashatile, is expected to come and give his closing remarks. But let's just also talk to my colleague, the political editor of our politics desk at the SABC, Mr. Mzwandile Mbecha, just to give an analysis of, how he thought this weekend actually went. Mzwai, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, just assessing what happened over this past weekend, the issue of quarantine votes yet again being dealt with.
Yes, thank you very much, Natasha. Yeah, it's been quite, I guess we were to expect that this time around it was going to go smoothly because the tensions are now over. With the election of the top 5 last week, it basically ended those tensions. But some of the issues obviously still remained. As you've correctly said, we still have the issue of the quarantine votes. And interestingly, no one wants to resolve that issue. The NEC couldn't, deferred it to the PEC. That outgoing PEC said, we can't do it, we'll defer it to the incoming PEC, the one that is being voted into now. So, but basically what I think will happen moving forward is that this province will realize that they have a lot in their hands. You and I are standing here, so a few kilometers from here, we've had those mass shootings at the taverns. So this is the kind of leadership that wants to deal with issues in this province. So I think as they conclude these discussions, so is the issue of safety and security, crime, work and all those things, is it the issue that was first and foremost in their minds? So it will be interesting to hear the new chairperson, Panyazele Sophie, when he closes, what are the issues he's going to touch on? Because this province is really faced with so much. In fact, the ANC itself knows very well that if it doesn't do any better than it has done, so this will they'll basically lose this province.
And I can tell you, Zai, that this is an issue that the ANC was actually tasked with talking about, especially in their policy discussion commissions as well. Also, you touch on a very important issue. Gautengers, South Africans woke up to the tragic news of those mass shootings. We hear about Gauteng, we hear about Soweto. There's also some in another province in KZN. But what does it speak to? The safety and security. You have a ministry that is tasked with this. Are we found wanting or is our police cluster actually found wanting?
You know, it's unfortunate that we couldn't find some of the national figures here, the national ministers, because in most of these gatherings they do come. So we really wanted to pose some of those questions to say, here is the situation really gripping the country. So have you got a hold on it? So are you losing the grip? So what exactly? And interestingly, Natasha, I mean, in 2 weeks, the KZN will be having the similar conference, and you've had similar challenges as they gather here. So what exactly are they talking about? Are they talking about concrete measures to deal with the issues and challenges that are facing the country? Because at the end of the day, you can slogan here, but if people on the ground don't feel that, so it's really pointless. So I guess when the newly elected chairperson closes this conference, so we'll get some indication as to what they plan to do. Remember, they're still in government, and then, for example, Lesufi remains an MEC, so he will be having more power now, given that politically he's the chairperson. So what exactly are they going to do to make sure that people feel safe? Because it's a real thing. You can't just come to conferences and be happy that you've elected. Those people that are elected to serve. Are they going to do exactly that? It's a big question.
And of course, speaking to Panyaza Lesufi earlier on, he did confirm to the SABC that him and Premier David Makura, who's a former chairperson of the ANC in the province, will be visiting the victims of that tragic incident that happened in that tavern. But also just looking at the dynamics here in Gauteng, I mean, you have Panyaza Lesufi who said he wouldn't be pressured into pronouncing their preferred candidate, Lebogang Maile as well. What does this mean in the greater scheme of things, especially moving up to the Nasrec conference in December?
Well, you know, there were two contesting slates 2 weeks ago, and we knew how they are somehow aligned. I mean, I can tell you now that as much as Panyaza Lesufi is saying he's not going to be pressured, but he's viewed as someone who is aligned to the current president. So I guess in the next few weeks or months, when they pronounce, chances are they'll pronounce in that favor. But I guess it's exactly what perhaps is bogging down the ANC politics. Their preoccupation with the names. So who must lead? But the problem is they have to be preoccupied with issues on the ground. If the strategy is not to pronounce because they prioritize the issues, that would be well and good for South Africans because they are the governing party. But if they want to perhaps follow other provinces and pronounce, well, I guess it will be the trend that we've been seeing. So the ANC has to really look itself in the mirror and say, are we on the right track? If we are, why are we losing support? Why are people losing confidence? Is the big issue that they have to look at.
Nzai, thank you so much for your time and for your analysis. That was our political editor, Flo Zwandile, just analyzing, issues around this conference. Of course, the ANC had said that they're confident they're going to finish on time. It looks as if it might be another late night, yet again here at the Birchwood Hotel in Ekurhuleni. But of course, Flo, let me just leave it here and cross back to you in studio.
All right, thanks very much to you, Natasha Phiri, for us there in Benoni, along with our political editor, Zwandile.